quite a while ago now, I decided I wanted to draw all of my human OCs in one image so that all of them could have a real reference picture. This is mainly because I'm getting a poster commissioned that will have every single one of my OCs, and most of my human OCs don't really have a proper reference sheet. Anyways, as usual, I recorded a speed paint for it, but I decided that it's a very boring speed paint since it's really just flat colors and it's not drawn in my normal polished style. It's drawn very simply and there's not a lot of detail since the main goal is to really just portray what the character's colors are. Because of this, I decided to do this voiceover where I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about each of my OCs. First of all, they're all broken up into 4 completely separate stories. I don't really have real names for them right now, so I have some working titles for them. The first one is currently called Nothing is Set in Stone. The second one is called Two Birds of a Feather. The third one's called Animorphs, which is definitely a joke, and I will definitely change it, but you'll see why they're called that. And the fourth one is called Frozen 3, which, again, I'll change it, but you'll see why. Now, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the video. The first character that I am looking at today is Yannick. He is one of my very developed characters and I really love him. His story is rather dark, so please skip to the time listed on the screen if you are uncomfortable with themes of abuse. Yannick's story is realistic fiction and it's set in the real world. From the outside, Yannick seems to be a very simple man. He owns a small bakery in a small town with his brother, and they seem happy from the surface. However, there's a lot of things underneath. Yannick and Lucas had a very challenging childhood, and they even fled their home at some point to get away from it. Yannick, being about 6 years older than Lucas, led to him becoming a sort of father figure to him. Being the older sibling also means that Yannick faced more abuse than Lucas did because he tried to protect his younger brother. Years of torment has taken its toll on Yannick, and he is severely depressed because of it. He has a very hard time controlling his emotions and often lashes out at people without even meaning to. He, however, tries very hard to not lash out at his brother because of how much he cares for him. He wants Lucas to have the best life possible, even considering the torment that they both went through as kids. There's a lot I left out about Yannick's character, and that's because I've been writing about him for quite a long time now. He was originally made in creative writing class for a project where we had to all make characters fit into a small town. It's been a few years since I first made him, and I really still love his character to bits. He's gone through many renditions, but for the moment I'm pretty happy with the way he is. I would have given more detail as to his story, however, I am actually writing a book about him. It will definitely not be out for quite a while, but I will definitely get it done eventually. It's really one of my main goals to actually get a book published. It will take a very long time, but it's one of my goals, and I really want to get it done. So if this character sounds at all interesting to you, I'll let everyone know when it comes out. Now on to the next character within the same story. Lucas. Lucas is Yannick's brother, as I mentioned before. Lucas also had a very traumatic childhood similar to his brother. However, because he was younger and because his brother was looking out for him, he shielded him from most of the abuse. This means that he doesn't really realize how bad it was for Yannick. This also means that he has a much more carefree attitude and kind of just does what he wants. He doesn't really conform in any way. He's much more loose and lighthearted, and in a lot of ways very immature. He does a lot of immature and rather stupid things that many would consider stuff they only would do in high school. This is very hard for Yannick to deal with because of his controlling nature with Lucas. As with Yannick, I really love Lucas. He's definitely one of my favorite characters, however, I cannot fully claim him. As I mentioned with Yannick, he was created in creative writing, and we were only allowed to create one character each. However, my friend and I decided that it would be fun to make our characters brothers. Originally, Lucas's name was Luca, and he had a much different personality. He was much less willing to be controlled and much more independent even from his brother, but I decided that it would kind of fit in with Yannick's character more to have Luca be a little bit more willing to let Yannick control him. Also, my book will be mostly focusing on Yannick since he is my character entirely, whereas Lucas still does have bits inspired by what my friend originally made. This story is about my character Jay. This story is set in a semi-realistic world, however it does have a lot of fantasy elements. In this world, when people evolved from apes, they didn't just evolve from apes. There was many branches of evolution that stem from all sorts of animals, and eventually all became what we know as the modern person. However, this resulted in some recessive genes staying within the bloodline. It's very rare, however, there are some people who have traits of these animals. For example, some people could have ears or tails, or, in Jay's case, wings. There are even cases of people looking fully anthropomorphic. However, because of the rarity and oddity of people who do look like literal walking animals, society has decided that they do not like them very much. This means that most humanoids try to hide their humanoid features, if at all possible. People finding out that you're a humanoid could result in some awful things, such as losing your job, being disowned from your family, or even being killed on the street. The gene being recessive and impossible to test for means that there will never stop being humanoids. They will always be born in this world. However, because of how oppressed they are, there's very little that they can really do to fight against it. This leads into my character Jay. Jay is a 16-year-old boy who goes to an ordinary high school. He has many friends and is very well liked. However, this is because of his overcompensation for the secret that he's keeping. Jay is a bird humanoid, meaning that he has large, feathery blue wings, and his feet are much more like bird feet rather than human feet. Jay's mother is also a bird humanoid, however, his sister Alex is not a humanoid. This creates a lot of tension between them because she can really not understand what he is going through. So that was my character Jay, and also with Jay, he's very limited, and while I do want to eventually write some kind of book with him or some kind of media about him, the main problem is that Jay's story is very jumbled in my head, and I really just don't have a very clear idea of what I really want to write. Originally, his story was completely different. I mean, literally entirely different, and that's because he is the oldest human OC I have. I made him when I was about 11 years old, and I made him for the sheer purpose of role-playing with my friend, which I think was pretty funny looking back that I created this whole character just so I could roleplay. The main idea of the roleplay was that there was these humanoid characters and they were discriminated against, and originally Jay worked in this association where basically they hunted down people who hurt humanoids, and then Jay killed them because he was edgy or whatever. He used to be very angry and very just aggressive and kind of just an overall bad guy. So I kind of changed him to be a lot more charismatic and a lot more likable and more so a victim of circumstance rather than the one actually victimizing other people. He also used to have a very dramatic backstory where he was like in a concentration camp and stuff. It was really, really bad, and I was very young. And originally I had it where he didn't even have a sister. I just randomly thought of it to spice up the roleplay one day. And then I introduced Alex, and this is what Alex originally looked like. Yeah, very original, huh? So basically she was just a carbon copy of Jay, just like a twin of him that was long and lost or whatever. But then I one day decided to kind of do an AU of them where they had actually known each other their entire lives instead of being separated. And I decided that the AU actually made more sense than the original story, and that's what I ended up going with, where Jay had a much less traumatic childhood. It was still very traumatic, being discriminated against constantly, but definitely a lot less traumatic. And instead of having them both be adults, I decided to set it when they were both kids attending high school. For now, I really don't have much information about Jay's story, just because, like I said, it's very jumbled, and I have a lot to still figure out. And I have a lot of details from the original roleplay that I kind of want to get in there. Not a lot of them. There's a lot that's just totally garbage and I'm totally going to just forget about. But it's kind of there was an original character there that I kind of like, and I do kind of miss that version of Jay, so I kind of have a lot of work to still do with him. But his character design has actually changed very little over the years. It's almost identical. I'll put up some images of what he has looked like over the years. Like I said, very little change. Also, I thought I'd mention the reason I didn't draw Alex on here is because Alex is kind of still in limbo, and I'm not really sure what to do with her. I definitely want him to have a sister, but I might change her back to being more like him, make her a humanoid again, or maybe I'll keep her not being a humanoid. It's really just all up in the air right now, so for now, she doesn't really have that much of a set design. So, moving on to the Animorphs. I'm sure some people are wondering why I call them that, and there's actually a very good reason for that. It's because they were all actually originally animals. I decided eventually that I was just going to turn them into humans because there was actually no reason for them to be animals. It was just because I was 12 and a furry. So I made them all humans, and that's where I gave them the name Animorphs. I just think it's a little funny. This story is just really all over the place. There's not much of a story. I kind of had an idea for a story for them, but it's just really in the works right now. So I'll just kind of go over character points of each of them individually. The first character that I'm going to be talking about is Miles. When Miles was a very young child, he was very antisocial and was very unable to participate in anything involving other people. He had a very hard time talking to other people, even as a very young child. When he was only about 5 years old, however, he accidentally set his house on fire. In this process, he killed his parents and permanently gave himself a scar across his face. After this occurred, he went to live with his uncle. His uncle was not bad necessarily, but he neglected him and didn't really give him any attention, nor did he attempt to help Miles with his antisocial behavior. Having no help, this only grew worse. Despite being unable to talk to anyone, he was extremely lonely and desperately craved attention from other people. However, being rejected his entire life by people, not only just his uncle but other kids calling his scar scary, he decided to leave and go live in the forest. He lives in a cave in the forest, and sometimes when he sees hikers walking nearby, he'll actually strike up conversations. He finds it that he can talk to someone best when they're tied up, so sometimes he'll knock hikers out and tie them up and talk to them. He doesn't really have a concept of what's right and wrong, and sometimes he'll hurt people. He doesn't really know that he's hurting people. He kind of thinks that it's just funny. He's killed multiple people in the woods. However, he didn't necessarily want to kill them, but after the first few times, he did start to somewhat enjoy the feeling. He felt powerful, and he felt like he could really have a conversation. They weren't allowed to walk away, and they generally were nice to him since they were scared. He grew to really love that feeling. Next character is Casey. Casey is a very sweet girl. She does anything to help her community, and she's always bubbly and happy. This, however, leads to her downfall. She wants to see the best in every single person she meets, and she wants to give everyone the best. However, many people will try to take advantage of her kind nature, and many people succeed in taking advantage of her. Regardless of how many times people have let her down, however, she never disappoints in jumping right back to be the kind-hearted individual she is. Next up is Stanza. Stanza is more tough and set in her ways. She is extremely good at following rules, and she sticks to them to an almost obnoxious point. She's not very lighthearted or fun, and generally just very stern. She is not aggressive at all, however. She is just very quiet and keeps to herself. However, it is not out of being shy or being unable to talk. It is mostly just because of her attitude of wanting to get things done as quickly as possible. She is also very skilled at playing the cello. Next, we have Austin. Austin is a very happy-go-lucky guy. He really likes to meet new people, and he makes lots of friends as well. He's extremely talkative, and often can be too talkative and come across as a bit annoying. He is very unapologetically himself, and he does basically whatever he wants, he wears whatever he wants, and he just kind of lives his life. Austin's fatal flaw, however, is the fact that he's very bad at picking up on signals that people are sending him. Someone could be flirting with him all night, and he would think that they're just friends. Or someone could be trying to tell him he's being a bit annoying and maybe he should quiet down, and he just wouldn't notice at all. He's considered by some of his friends to be a bit dumb because of this, however, he's very far from being stupid. Finally, the last character in this section, Guenter. Guenter is a very sweet person and genuinely wants to help other people. He is a German teacher at a high school and really enjoys teaching people his native language. He has a lot of difficulty understanding English, which makes it very hard for him to have everlasting relationships with people when he can't really understand what they're saying half the time. Besides that, Guenter really doesn't have much of a character at the moment. And that is all for the Animorphs section. I do like these characters quite a bit. There are definitely some that mean a lot to me, but overall, The story was actually originally going to be this kind of interesting idea where I wanted to do this like love pentagon where it was like 5 characters that were all like a love triangle type thing, but instead of a triangle it was 5 of them, and it was really confusing. And I thought it would be cool, but the problem was it just got too confusing too fast, and even I couldn't keep up with it, so there's no way a reader could keep up with that. So I just decided to scrap that whole idea, and kind of do something a bit different with it. But I still have all these characters. I'm not really entirely sure who the story is going to be. A lot of them are very underdeveloped, such as Guenter. He really has no character development. But I really do like these characters, and there's a lot of fun quirks with them, like the fact that Casey was originally named Cloudy and was originally a boy, or the fact that Miles was originally named Smiles, which I thought was a little fun change I did. Overall, the problem with these guys is that none of them really have a whole lot of personality. I really just wanted to do something with all these old furry designs I had instead of just letting them sit and rot on my DeviantArt, but the problem is that their story really just doesn't make any sense as them as animals. It just is so much more clean to have it just be realistic fiction instead of have them be weirdly animals for no reason. Also, I'd like to mention that I didn't design most of their original animal designs, so credit for those designers will be left in the description. And the last story we'll be looking at today, I nicknamed Frozen 3, and that is because the main character has ice powers. Of course, the name will be changed once the story is actually made, but for now, that's just what it's going to be. This is a fantasy story with some realistic elements, but it's mostly just inspired by reality with some fantasy stuff put on top. The main character is named Kiba. Kiba was born in a small Nordic-inspired village. He, however, had an unusual ability to create ice from his palms. Also, he does not feel the effects of temperature. The townsfolk were very scared by this, and eventually banished him when he was only 7 years old. He was sent off to live in the tundra, which year-round has much snow on the ground. This doesn't bother him, however, considering the fact that he is immune to the cold. At first, he was resentful of the village people, but over time he grew numb to the fact that they had banished him. He's been out for many, many years now, and he is very much neutral on them. He doesn't overall dislike them, and he has actually found a lot of comfort within his banishment. He has found that he connects to animals on a much stronger level, and many of them are his good friends. Sometimes he will meet people who have wandered too far from the village. He will try to bring them back as close as he can, but often he does not wish to travel near the village. He will often let them stay with him, however he forgets that normal people cannot survive in a blizzard for very long. And finally, Mirage. Mirage is a spirit, and a trickster at that. Mirage cannot touch anyone physically, however he enjoys causing chaos from a distance. He likes to put ideas in people's heads and makes them do things that they wouldn't normally do because of his idea. He can teleport and float and do many other things. He can shapeshift and turn to basically anything he wants. However, his face mask always stays the same size and color, as well as his body staying the same purple shade. And that is all for my Frozen 3 characters. I promise, I'm going to change the name. I haven't worked the story a whole lot, so I don't really have a good name yet for the story. But I have actually been working on this for a while. I made Kiba in, I think, 2018 originally, and his name was originally Toby, and he was also originally an Arctic fox. My idea was an Arctic fox with ice powers. I thought that was kind of fun, but I decided, like with my Animorphs characters, to change him into a person, since it made more sense as a story. Mirage, on the other hand, was actually just a sketch that I originally did when I was in Spanish class 4 years ago. He was just a little ghost with a mask on, and then I decided he could be a shapeshifter, and I then actually paired him up with Kiba much later. It didn't dawn on me to put them together for a while, but I personally think that they will work pretty well together, since Mirage is kind of more lighthearted and kind of funny, whereas Kiba is extremely numb, not only to cold, but to basically any emotions. And that is all my human characters for now. I do have a few more characters, like supporting characters, like for example, Yannick has a friend who is a big part of the story. However, she's not really developed enough yet to have a set design. Same goes for Alex, like I mentioned, Jay's sister. So I might do another one of these in the future. I also might do another one of these for my furry OCs and for my animal OCs, and kind of the ones that don't really fit into the category of human. But overall, I still really hope that everyone enjoyed this video. I put a lot of effort into making this, so I hope that you enjoyed learning about my OCs. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll see you there.